Let me start with something that sounds fake but is not. There's a man named Jiro Ono who has spent more than 9 decades doing the same thing, every day, in the same place, with almost no variation, no scaling, no pivot, no next big move. He didn't build an empire. He didn't franchise. He didn't launch a brand. He didn't even really explain himself. And yet, people fly across the planet, wait months, sometimes years, and pay an unreasonable amount of money just to sit in front of him for 15 minutes. Not to talk, not to bond, just to eat. Reasonable. This is not a hustle story. It's not a redemption arc. It's not even inspirational in a clean, motivational poster way. It's quieter, stranger, slightly uncomfortable. Because the question Jiro Ono's life forces on you isn't, how do I become great? It's, what happens if you never stop? He is a man whose entire existence feels like a glitch in modern culture. Someone who accidentally became famous by doing the opposite of what we are told works. No balance, no escape plan, just repetition, precision, obsession. And whether that's admirable or terrifying depends on how long you think about it. Jiro Ono was born in 1925 in rural Japan, long before sushi became an aesthetic lifestyle choice or an Instagram personality. His childhood wasn't poetic. It was hard, economically unstable, and lonely. He left home at 9 years old and began working almost immediately, drifting through restaurant kitchens, washing dishes, observing silently, absorbing rules without ever being formally taught. There's no dramatic origin story here, no moment where he discovered his passion or something. Sushi wasn't destiny, it was proximity. It was what was available. And over time, availability turned into routine, and routine turned into identity. By his 20s, Jiro was already deeply embedded in the food world of post-war Japan. Eventually, in 1965, he opened a tiny sushi restaurant in a Tokyo subway station. 10 seats, no menu choices. No decor worth mentioning. Just him, the counter, and fish. Socially, Jiro is an anomaly. He is not charismatic in a conventional sense. He doesn't explain things gently. He doesn't soften criticism. Apprentices cry. Some quit. Many fail. He is known to be emotionally distant, rigid, and almost allergic to praise. And yet, over decades, something strange happened. Without trying to be important, he became important to a very specific kind of person. People obsessed with mastery. To understand Jiro, you have to understand Japan, but not the romanticized version. Post-war Japan was built on discipline, hierarchy, and endurance. You did not find yourself. You endured yourself. Craftsmanship was moral. Repetition was virtue. Mastery wasn't about joy. It was about responsibility. Now imagine that mindset colliding with modern capitalism. While the world moved toward efficiency, scaling, shortcuts, and branding, Jiro stayed exactly where he was. Same station, same counter, same techniques refined by millimeters, seconds, temperatures most people can detect. Think of it like this. While everyone else was updating their operating systems, Jiro refused updates entirely and just optimized the hardware manually forever. This wasn't rebellion. It was commentary. It was inertia paired with discipline. And that's what makes it unsettling. The thing Jiro did, his entire thing, was chase perfection in sushi, knowing he would never reach it. That's not poetic language. He says this explicitly. Even after decades, awards, global attention, he still believes he hasn't achieved perfection. The rice temperature might be off. The fish might be imperfect. The timing might slip by a second. Here's the contrast. What he thought? If I repeat this enough times, I might get close to perfection. What actually happened? The repetition became the point, not the perfection. Modern analogy? Imagine updating the same single line of code every day for 70 years, not to ship a product, but just to make the line slightly more elegant, knowing no one else will ever notice the difference. Jiro's sushi is not experimental. It's not creative in the flashy sense. It's obsessive refinement of a narrow slice of reality. One fish, one cut, one motion, again and again and again and again. Okay. Pause. This is where it gets wild. Jiro is over 100 years old. He could stop. He doesn't need money. He doesn't need recognition. He already has more validation than most people get in 5 lifetimes. And yet, he still goes to work. Not chicks and not consoles. He stands there. He cuts fish. He watches rice. He corrects mistakes that only he can see. At a certain point, you have to ask, is this discipline or is this a trap? Because most of us are told obsession is dangerous. Burnout is real. Balance matters. But Jiro looked at all that advice and just said, nope. And the unsettling part? It worked. For him. Jiro's story is interesting because it refuses resolution. There is no redemption, no collapse, no triumphant final act, just continuation. It reveals something uncomfortable about human psychology. Some people are not motivated by happiness, freedom, or even meaning. They are motivated by process. And when the process becomes identity, stopping feels like erasing yourself. This story also exposes how much modern culture depends on movement, growth, change, reinvention. Jiro is interesting precisely because he opted out. He didn't suffer for it in the ways we expect. It's a reminder that there isn't one correct way to live, but also that some ways come with costs we don't talk about. You don't need to care about sushi to recognize Jiro. You've seen him in other forms. The programmer who never leaves one codebase. The athlete who can't retire. The artist who makes the same thing forever. The YouTuber who refuses to pivot even when the algorithm changes. Jiro represents a personality type that still exists. The person who chooses depth over breadth, repetition over novelty, and accepts the narrowing of life as the price of precision. This is an influence. It's recognition. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's the part that sticks with me. Jiro never talks about happiness. He doesn't frame his life as sacrifice or fulfillment. He just talks about work, about improvement, about attention. And it makes you wonder whether we have overcomplicated the question of meaning. Not because Jiro has the answer, but because his life asks a question we don't like. What if meaning isn't found, but built, slowly, through repetition? That's not comforting, it's demanding. And maybe that's why his story lingers. This story messes with the idea that you're supposed to optimize everything: career, joy, identity, growth. It quietly challenges the assumption that stopping is always healthy, that balance is always necessary, that obsession is always destructive. And whether you agree with Jiro or not, his life plants an uncomfortable question. If you remove distraction, novelty, and validation, what would you still do? Most people don't like their answer. Jiro Ono didn't try to be inspirational. He didn't try to be important, he just refused to stop. And whether that's wisdom or madness depends on how long you're willing to sit with it.